It says we're live. So ready. Witches are we? Witches are we? Witches are we on a Wednesday? You should join in. It's fun.
Well, I would do, but the problem is if two people sing at the same time, it all comes out very odd. I know that's what happens. Yes.
It will probably come out very odd anyway, to be fair.
Mm.
Well, how are you?
Yes, present and correct, I think. Fed up of being rained on the last few days, but there you go.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Do you know what? Actually, I was saying about this earlier today. So I've been away. I've been at a place up in Bedfordshire, which is a retreat place. It's several acres of woodland and grassland and meadowland, and there's all sorts of yurts and teepees and all sorts of bits and pieces up there. And it was really strange because I went trotting off to the loo this morning, and on the way back it was blowing a gale, and actually it had stopped raining temporarily, which is why I chose that moment to actually go to the loo, amongst others. And it really felt like it was the end of September, beginning of autumn. You know, you get that certain feeling of what month it is. You get the sort of sense of what month it is and what time of year it is. And so on. But it was really strange. It really felt like it was the end of September, beginning of October. It didn't feel like May at all. It felt like it was the other side of summer instead of this side of summer. It was really strange. Really strange.
I do get that sometimes. And it's always the opposite. Very occasionally I'll get that.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. So it's, you have chilly May days, of course you do, and you have, chilly September days and so on and stuff. But it's just that you get a certain sense in the air of how something is, don't you? It was just really bizarre. It really felt like it was the end of, nearer Halloween rather than, nearer the solstice. It was really odd. Really odd.
Yeah, very strange.
Very strange. Anyway, we have some people in. So if I put my spectacles on, we'll be able to say hello to people, won't we? Ready? Get that wavy paw ready. We have Acasta Jinx. Hello. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello. And we have Tony in. Hello, Tony. Hope you're well. And Redwing, of course. Hello. Hope you're doing well this evening. We've got London Girl back for more Glutton for Punishment. Hello. Oh, we've got Megan in. Hi, Megan. Hope you're really, really well. I'm practicing hard. And we've got Chris in, Wibble Chick. Hello. Hope you're very, very well. You haven't missed much, Chris. We've just been talking about how strange the weather is at the moment and how it feels like autumn rather than spring. We've got Hans in, of course. Hello, hello, hello. And hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Hannah's always going to be in because I'm, sitting at that place.
Indeed.
Indeed. So it's been a bit strange, but it's an amazing place. They do all sorts of retreats. They do sort of workshops and drumming, and they've got roundhouses there and stuff. And one of the most fascinating bits is that they've got an earth chamber. Yeah, it's nice. The energy's in there. It's lovely. And as unfortunately ended up being a noisy weekend, a few days instead of a quiet retreating couple of days like it should have been, thanks to the builders in the place opposite, which is nobody's fault. Stuff needs doing, but unfortunately it ended up being really noisy, and I get quite stressy with noises like that. But it was lovely to go in the earth chamber, and it's like deep underground, and it's dark, and it's it's sort of cool. It's not cold, but it's cool, but it's dark, and it's just earth. And the silence was amazing.
Yes, especially from the outside. I would think the owners of the place must have been slightly peeved, given that that's their marketing thing of peace and quiet. I think they would have been going and having a word. I think I would have done.
If you're building umpteen houses, you can't do it with a feather mallet. It just
True.
It isn't
but
possible.
That's not what they plan when they're selling it as being all out in the country and what have you. Clearly, now that someone's building houses next door, that's not quite the case.
No, exactly. So, so it's a bit unfortunate, really. And I think there's an awful lot of houses still yet to be constructed. So I think it's going to be quite a long time. So how that'll impact on their business, goodness only knows. And I feel sorry for them actually for that. But I don't know whether they work weekends. The builders work weekends, and as are these places, they tend to be quieter during the weekdays than they are. Tended to be quieter in the weekdays rather than at the weekends. Oh, look, I've had ginger
Where's
liver.
mine?
Here it comes. Oh, it's gone.
Ah.
I'll have to drink it for you, Helen.
Okay.
Very nice.
I'm sure it is.
Delish. So yeah, so I suppose for when their main troops come in, I suppose it's a little bit quieter on the assumption that the builders have something better to do at the weekend. But yeah, it's a shame. It is a shame, and it is noisy, very noisy. So yeah, pity really. So hopefully they're efficient builders, and they'll get on with it and get it up and done and dusted quickly. But if you've got a lot of houses to build, it's not going to be a 2-minute jobby, is it?
No, definitely not.
No. But anyway, the Earth Chamber was lovely, and it really was. When you can kind of, it's so quiet that you can hear your own pulse in your ears.
Yeah.
That sort of sign. Oh God, it was lovely. It really was. I just sort of sat there and soaked it in. It was like, oh, that's nice, really nice. I had a friendly cuckoo keep me up all night. That was interesting.
Okay.
Yes. Thought it was an actual cuckoo clock for a while. Turned out not to be a cuckoo clock at all, because it was a persistent little bugger and obviously quite lonely. So it was
Kept singing to you.
Oh my God! It went on for about 2 hours. Yes. We think. Apparently it was more than that, but it was a very long time anyway. So yeah, really a terribly lonely little cuckoo, and his friend's a bit deaf. So yeah, but it was nice, and it was nice to be away and nice to be in the countryside. It always is, of course. It's a pity about the noise, but the being in the countryside and just kind of chilling with the trees and the wildlife and things. And I saw something I've never ever seen in my whole 55 years, which was chickens up a tree.
Yes, because that's what they would naturally do. Yeah. And you've never actually seen it.
No, I've never seen it before, because obviously the ones that are generally around tend to be ones that have been rescued or sort of there for whatever purposes, and they've been clipped, haven't they, so they can't fly and do their own thing. But yeah, there they were up the tree. It's like, I've never seen chickens in a tree in my life. It was brilliant. Quite made my week, actually.
Well, there you go.
Of all the things, I think actually was the thing that I liked best of all. Seeing chickens in a tree. There was 4 of them, very plump ones, I might add.
Right.
Yeah.
Well out of the way of Mr. Fox.
Exactly. Well out of the way of Mr. Fox, and obviously living their best life, because they were very plump and very fluffy and very feathery, and yeah, absolutely lovely. They really were. So yeah, I did genuinely quite make my week seeing that. I'm easily pleased, actually. Anything or furry, yes. So as we've got Jen in. Hello, Jen. Hope you're well. And we've got Zoe. Hello, Zoe. Hello, hello, hello. Good. Everyone's here. World and his wife's in today. How very, very nice. So yes, so I've been up the woods lots as well, my own woods, and I've been doing all sorts of bits and pieces up there, because obviously, there's a lot to be done to get it ready for August. Yeah, nearly broke my ankle. That wasn't particularly magical, I have to say. Still a very funny colour. Yeah, still a very funny colour. It's definitely not broken, but it is.
That bruise didn't look very magical.
No. Well, what's magical about it is it doesn't hurt unless you poke it.
So don't poke it.
No, exactly. And that's clearly the message there. Don't poke a bruise that doesn't hurt. So, yeah. Well, it's an even more funny colour than when I saw you on Monday.
Oh, okay.
And it's bigger. So, yeah, it's spreading a bit. But it's definitely not broken, because it doesn't hurt to walk on it or do anything like that. But, yeah, it's...
that's just as well.
Yeah, it is just as well. So, yeah, rather good. So, have you been up to some magical doings?
Well, because the weather has been as it has, I have been playing with that a bit, fairly successfully on a few occasions when, when literally there was rain over there, rain over there, rain over there, and nothing going on
You
above.
get
So I'm honing my skills ready for the coming summer and all these weddings and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what you can do. Yeah,
It is.
it was good fun, and I suppose I sort of trust it more now as well. I think I always thought, well, I mean, who knows really, but I know that intent counts, and I know that it must make a difference because I rarely get wet.
Yeah.
So,
And you'd melt if you did, let's face it. So yes.
I just shrink in the wash. That might not be such a bad thing. We'll just leave that there. But yes, I've been having fun with that. And also, as well as the usual, well, I say the usual, the sort of the healing stuff that's going on, and that continues anyway.
Yeah.
I've also been having some strange time experiences. We'd had a bit of a conversation, I think, about the sort of collapsing of time when you get a lot done in a very small period of time. And I've noticed that at least twice this week that has happened. And of course, the minute you notice it, it stops.
It does, yeah. Yeah.
But it's been interesting because I've gone, hang on, I've done all that and only 5 minutes has gone.
Yeah.
And so I'm tuning into it more now. So that's going to be fun to play with.
Yeah.
I think I've always done it on occasion, when you've had to stretch time in order to get stuff done, in order to get somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that it happened completely without a need and out of nowhere, and I caught it, and then of course it starts you wondering, well, does anyone else notice it, or what happens? Time is such a subjective thing; it's not an absolute.
Yeah.
Even the scientists are saying that. So there's it's fascinating me anyway. My brain is going down all sorts of rabbit holes trying to make sense of it. But actually, you shouldn't logic out something that clearly doesn't want to be overthought.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting though, and it's such a such an amazing thing, learning to play with time like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I've had this conversation on here before, where the first time I noticed that I could do something time-wise was when I was quite small, and I was buttering toast. And it was a connection of not just time, but there was a certain amount of kinetic stuff going on there, because the knife that I was using, I wasn't allowed to use the sharp knife. And guess which knife I was using to put butter on my toast. And I dropped it, and I must have been about 6 or 7, maybe 8, but that sort of age anyway, still primary school. And I dropped it, and I slowed time down and slowed the knife down, and obviously time sufficiently to literally just watch it. And I watched it all the way from the worktop shelf to the floor, and slowed it down sufficiently to make it. And although it landed in the point that it would have landed, I didn't disperse it and get it to land anywhere else, but slowed it down considerably, plenty of time to just move my foot out of the way. And I just watched it as it went down, and I stepped to the side, and then it went on the floor.
Yeah.
And that was the very first time that I noticed that I could do stuff like that. It's like,
wow. I'm
so,
beginning to realise that I can do similar, but I hadn't really played with it much. So that's kind of a slightly new departure, really.
It's interesting though. It is interesting, yeah. And it's one of those things that there has to be, for me, there has to be a heightened state of emotion. Generally speaking, it has to be either intense upset or intense anger. Those two things seem to be the ones that trigger me being able to do something with time. Doesn't matter what that happens to be. But talking of that, I had a really weird experience a couple of weeks ago. So normally when I go and visit my old lady, it takes around about half an hour of motorway driving plus the country roads at either end. And it almost always takes half an hour, give or take a minute or so. And that's driving at normal motorway speeds and, the speed limits on the country lanes. And this particular occasion, a couple of weeks ago, I managed to hit every single bit of roadworks coming home. And, the roads on the motorway, instead of 70, they were either 20 or 30. And it just went on forever and ever and ever. And I had a bit of a detour that I had to do. And there was a roadworks at my end on the country lanes. And there was a set of traffic lights that I had to wait for ages for. And got home in 20 minutes flat. You worked that out.
The first time it happened to me was driving. But there was no emotional thing. That was the difference. I wasn't falling, or I've done that before where I've managed to engineer my fall so that I don't break myself. I've done that on many an occasion. I did it a couple of years ago. I realized that's what I did so that I wouldn't actually break myself. But the fact that there was no emotion to it at all, it was just simply, I suddenly thought, hang on, I only left 5 minutes ago and I'm here. And as soon as I noticed it, then time obviously just clicked back into normal. Yeah. And I did it again when I was cooking something. Again, my mind wasn't doing anything specific, but I was cooking something. It's going to take quite a while to cook this dinner. I wish I could do it a bit quicker because I've got something else to be doing. And literally, I don't know, it's only 1/4 past, but they're cooked and the potatoes are,
It's nice when it happens. Yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
There are so many areas that you can spread things. I mean, I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with that. Because it can be very useful. And if it's something I can get some measure of, I doubt if I can get conscious control over it, but you never know. I mean, the fact that I haven't got to have a heightened emotion is progress, I'm guessing. And also a lot more of the sort of the manifesting stuff, which isn't a deliberate purpose. I haven't said I need to find this, that, or the other. Yeah. It's simply a state of openness to, well, you never know what's going to happen. Yeah. And I literally came across what can only be described as a motherload of wonderful jewellery whilst at the boot fair. I just happened to be the first person that I walked along, picked up a piece of clothing. And as I was about to buy this piece of clothing, a lady was just tipping out this bag of costume jewellery into a big pot. And I'm the first person there, and it's like, I said, I'm going to make a bit of a pile. And got some stunning things. So it's not about need or having to do a spell to get something. It's more fluid than that.
Yeah.
Remarkable that it keeps happening. It's like, I've definitely upped my strike rate lately. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. And it is one of those things that, with all of it, it just mutates over time, isn't it? And you realise that you have an aptitude for a certain type of thing, and then you hone that skill, and that then becomes just an everyday thing, and that until the next thing comes along that you then hone that too. I think that's fascinating.
Exactly.
You sort of absorb it almost by osmosis, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I learn everything by osmosis, really. I always have done. And now in the days of sort of YouTube and stuff like that, I know once I've seen something, it's locked and loaded. If I ever see anything that looks like that again, I am not going to. Yeah. I just won't miss it. It's like my attention I'm a magpie and I will spot things almost a mile off now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's excellent stuff.
And it's a new thing. It's about learning something new. Because on the business side of my business is running with the clothes, and I can do that. And I don't get as much enjoyment out of that as I used to, although I can still do all right.
Yeah.
But I have to be learning something new. That's the thing.
Exactly. Right, let me have a quick catch up on what people have been saying, because there's loads of stuff on here. Hang on a moment.
Yeah, it's about the time and stuff.
Okay, so Hannah is talking about and apologising to who wanted to know about the Neolithic spheres. And obviously that was a chat that we had last year, probably in the summer of last year, wasn't it? So that's that. I think, okay, yes, that was a question last time, wasn't it? Nan says, chicken whisperer. Hen whisperer. So and if anyone's interested how I nearly broke my ankle, a whopping great tree fell on it. It was a whopping great big tree. 40 foot. It was bigger than 40 foot. It was more like 60. It was a big one, and it fell on my foot. It was a big one. Yeah, exactly. So and it was London Girl. So thank you for pointing that out about the Neolithic spheres. Stopping time. Oh yeah, the stopping time. That must be at the fire. Is that what you're referring to, Jen? So, I had an incident back in October where I seemingly stopped time. Similar sort of thing to the knife, where it's like slowed right down and stopped it. I managed to do the same stop time thing, and there was a fire incident. And yeah, obviously, time is very, very much of the essence when it comes to fire. So yeah, sort of by pausing, like literally kind of like pressing the pause button long enough to help somebody out of a fire. Obviously, that was that was a thing. But Hans is saying that Jen has an aptitude for stopping time too. So yeah, tell us about that. That would be interesting too. Yeah, exactly. And as Hans says, yeah, we looked into it, and solids and fluids and vapors and all that kind of stuff. There seems to be certain shapes that resonate with it. We've been talking about they call it the cosmic flower or something like that, cosmic lotus thing. It's kind of like it's like a cylinder, but then it's got these sort of semicircle bits around each end, and then you can like twist it into different things. That's a strange thing, but there's certain shapes and stuff that seem to have this connection with the time thing as well. It's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle at the moment, not knowing, all the pieces are jumbled up. You're not entirely sure what picture it is that you're making, so it's a difficult thing to follow. But there's lots of pieces of jigsaw, and obviously not all of the pieces of jigsaw have arrived yet. They're coming by special delivery on a monthly basis, but they're not all there yet. So we're not entirely sure what the picture is, so you just kind of like put the bits together as best you can, and that seems to fit. Oh no, perhaps actually it's better over there. So it's a bit of an odd thing to do at the moment, but it's it's a work in progress, isn't it? We're like so much of this stuff, it's a work in progress, and it's like, oh, that seems to work there and that seems to work there. So yeah,
it's fascinating just seeing where stuff goes, and just trying to think about it and try and think, well, how can that happen? If I can do that, then surely it should be possible to do. That's the thing. You end up thinking, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So how's your healing work been going?
Still going okay. Yeah, I mean, I just have an ongoing sort of list, if you like, list of people I think about before going to sleep of an evening to make sure that they're all well and that everything's spinning along nicely. And it's all going okay. My dear friend is ploughing on with treatment and is doing quite well. Very tired naturally, but then that's perfectly understandable. But not having too many ill effects otherwise, which is an absolute blessing. So
it's a relief, isn't it? Yeah, that's what you hope, isn't it? That not only is the treatment going to be successful, but it's not going to make somebody feel too dreadful in the process of having the treatment. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, you're bound to feel a bit nauseous or something like that with chemotherapy, but you don't want it being an ongoing thing and just making you feel down and depressed. And I think also having a mental attitude which says, while I can do things, I'm going to do them and crack on, and it's a good distraction. That's a very healthy thing to do for most people. So
definitely.
An attitude will help in the process. And my friend has that in spades, so I'm delighted to say.
That's fortunate, isn't it? Yeah, very, very fortunate. Yeah. But I suppose that's the same about anything, really, isn't it? The old positive mental attitudes, and it works in so many different areas of life, doesn't it? That positive mental thing. Yeah, and of course, it's once you've got it, that's fine. But sometimes it's difficult if you've lost that to regain it, isn't it? Sometimes that can be a difficult thing, and of course, that's where, for me personally, and obviously, as you know, I suffer very badly from depression, and sometimes, losing that, it's really difficult to get it back again. But that, for me, is where a lot of witchcraft comes in. So I'll utilize the fact that I'll do witchcraft to get that back, and then bring that, so I'll bring something about, not by positive mental attitude, but by witchcraft, which, at that point is arguably interchangeable, I suppose.
True, but then it's something that works very well, and you've been there in the past, so that when you feel, when you're aware that you've got to a certain place, and part of the battle is being aware that you're in that space, sitting with it and then going, right, okay, how am I going to get out of this? I know, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And that works on a practical level. And of course, sometimes that's all you need. You know, you need a, sort of a proverbial kick up the pants, don't you? Sometimes that's that. And obviously that's not always the case, because, there's far more to it than that, rather than something just, making you feel a bit cheesed off for a while. Obviously, and it's, far more complicated than that. But yeah, I use that quite regularly to, sort of help kickstart things, or help me feel better, or, just sort of bring something about that I need, at that time. So so it's a different way of going about it, and other people would use, alternative methods and so on. But it's it seems to work for me, and I'm still here.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, it's knowing yourself well enough to know what you need and when you need it. Yeah,
it's a difficult one though. It is.
Yeah, I think Jen is rushing back to work again. She's on her lunch break.
Oh, right.
Hope you can watch us back, Jen. And
unfortunately, Jen's saying that she's not sure whether there's time to be stretch the time, make the time. That's the point. But that would be good. Maybe we could talk about that next time round. Now, you're not here next week, Heather, are you?
I'm not. No, I will actually be away.
Pastors New.
Just for the week. I'll be back. It's not permanent.
Pastors New.
It's called a holiday, but I think that's a mislabeled term for what we go through in that week. But yes, I'll be away from home.
Yes, exactly. Yes, holidays come with all sorts of inferences, don't they? Yeah, exactly. Some of them better than other ones. So yes, but you're not going to be here. I haven't decided who I'm going to talk to yet. I might talk to you.
It would be rather obvious, seeing as you're in the same space.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I'll see if anybody volunteers, and if not, I'm afraid you're stuck with it. Watch this space. So Jen's got 3 or 4 minutes left. Stopping time, Jen. Obviously, I briefly mentioned that occasion. I think I mentioned it before, of stopping time and so on. But Hans says that you've managed to do that too. So I'd love to hear a little bit, even if you just type us something really quickly, just so that we get a taster of what it is that you could do. That would be lovely.
Yes, tease us.
Yes, tease us, and then come back.
Come back next week and fill them in a bit more detail.
Exactly. Yeah, really, really good. So, so I don't know whether you've seen this, Heather. Hans has said that if you message list of people with their permission, obviously, then healing can come from this end as well. So that would be really nice. So,
Fabulous. I've got 3 that I'm working with at the moment, so I will send those across. Thanks, Hans.
Yeah. So I've got a real good question for you while we're waiting. Hopefully Jen's got some info for us. But I've got an interesting topic of conversation for you. And it's rituals for rites of passage.
Ooh.
Yeah, rituals for rites of passage. I've got a particular reason for bringing it up, which actually I'm not going to say. But there's so many different reasons, isn't there, for rites of passage, both from, a young person's perspective, middle-aged person's perspective, older person's perspective, and so on. What are your thoughts on them? Do you think they're beneficial? Do you think that they're I don't know, OTT or necessary in all cultures? What are your thoughts on them?
I think they're a lovely thing. I think it's that some I've attended that have been really lovely. I think there's absolutely no downsides to them. Maybe you can go a bit overboard. There's always that, like anything. And it's when it works on lots of levels that it's the very best. When it's very tailored for the people involved, then it works really well. And that's not always possible. So they're the very best ones. And I think marking different ages, different stages in a ritualized format, I mean, what's a birthday but a ritual, is a good thing. It makes people aware of where they are in their life, where they want to go. It helps people take stock and examine, let go of things in the past and re-evaluate what they want for the future. I went to one or two Croning ceremonies that were quite amazing and a complete. That's something you don't hear about. You have, hand fastings are like weddings, and you have kind of coming of age things, but something for people getting, considering themselves to be ready to be croned, and that doesn't mean sort of being just oh, you're old now.
So pasture. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It worked. It was so subtle, and the people.
I quite like that. Sorry.
Yeah, and the people that went very beneficial, because it's kind of marks a whole new stage and freedom of life, a whole new area.
Heather, we seem to have lost you, love. Come back, Heather. All is forgiven. I think Heather's gone out to pasture. She's having a quick look at it, see whether she likes to look at it. Oh, there you are. We wondered if you were having a look at the pasture to see whether it was.
No, I didn't go anywhere. Oh, hang on. There we go.
We're back again.
Right.
Okay, let's have a look here.
Hang on.
Okay, so Tony's asking what a rite of passage is. And as Hans has already beaten me to it, it's an empowerment. So it's kind of like stop time, Heather. It's kind of like a celebration. So you might have, sort of think about things like bar mitzvahs for people that turn 13 in the Hebrew.
I think that's only boys, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But it's that thing. So that in itself is a rite of passage, regardless of who it's for. It's a rite of passage in that case for boys turning 13 and so on. So it's kind of a celebration or ritual marking a certain time of life, if you like. So so say you were I don't know, Heather was talking about croning. So generally seems to be for women, croning, in the same way that bar mitzvah obviously is for boys. That tends to be for women, not exclusively, but tends to be. And that's where, the woman has turned into the crone phase. So, menopause has happened. There's not going to be children arriving, by stalks, personally delivered anymore. And it's that whole celebrating the age and the wisdom that comes with that and the freedom that comes with all of that. And sort of, celebrating the knowledge and the wisdom and all that sort of thing. Another rite of passage could be a naming ceremony, and as I said, maybe a hand fasting, like a marriage too. So, there's lots of different things. But of course, luckily as well in this day and age, there's various other rites of passage that need to be included as well. So, somebody might be querying their identity, for example, from their sexuality from birth and then going on to something else. So there's those things that need to be considered as well. And that in those circumstances, they then help the individual to move forward and maybe help family and friends understand what it is that they absolutely want. And it's their way of explaining something to them. And of course, the other side of it is that sometimes these rites of passages happen because it's a family tradition or a religious tradition and so on, and the person involved doesn't necessarily want to be part of that, but the family expect that. And I think that's tough, actually. I think it should be, like you say, it's not necessarily always catered for and tailored around the individual, and it jolly well should be. And if that individual doesn't want to celebrate whatever turning point that, or marker that they've just arrived at, if they don't want to celebrate that, I think it's a difficult one to force somebody to have that done. So that's an interesting thing too. So there's all sorts of rites of passage that are out there. And obviously, as I said, in this day and age, there's more because, sexuality comes into it too and so on. So there's an awful lot to celebrate, essentially. And why the hell not?
Exactly. Any excuse.
Yeah, exactly. Life's tough as it is, but if you can mark something, sort of mark it and celebrate it and embrace it, properly take it on board, then you're going to accept that phase of your life theoretically more easily than if you just stumble into it and go, oh yeah, that happened 20 years ago, I don't know. So yeah, so hopefully that explains it a little bit anyway. Is that right, Chris? So Chris has written bat mitzvah for girls and bar mitzvah for boys. Yeah.
Wow.
I am ignorant in this matter, I'm afraid. So thank you for that and for clearing that up for me. Where are we? Where are we?
Musically interested.
Yeah. So Hans has put, if you go to Avebury, the stones have like faces and notches that are markings of rites of passage for different tribes or kin. Yeah, that's very true as well. So yeah, there's lots of different marks and symbols and stuff on there that have happened over the years, I think. So yeah, and as Chris says, I think it's becoming more popular for some witchy women to celebrate their daughter's first menstrual period. Good idea to start out with a positive attitude to it. Exactly. Years ago, of course, it used to be one of those things that was never ever discussed and just happened, and a lot of people had a bit of a shock. But yeah, it's why not? It's it's a good thing to celebrate. It's going from the from the chat thing, whatever age that might happen to be. So obviously there's more to it than that, but yeah, I think it's rather nice. So yeah, and says has written several rites of passage for things. So yeah, no, I think it's rather nice. I think it's a nice thing to do. And it sometimes it's if somebody is asking for a rite of passage to be done, it's because they might be actually requesting help transitioning into that new phase of their life, whether it's croning or whatever it might be. It's a helpful thing, especially if someone's asking. I think it's a helpful thing because someone's kind of like, I need to need help to celebrate this next bit or accept this next bit, because some parts of life are more difficult to accept than others, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And like any change can feel unsettling, unfamiliar. And the ritual process helps, I think, bed some of that down and calm the waters a bit. Yes.
Definitely. So and the reason I brought that up, I'm not going to say anything more about it other than a rite of passage has been asked for by a very, very, very dear friend. And it's just that whole concept of like, good for you asking for something to help with, going through what you're going through. And I think it's lovely, actually. So I think that's really, really nice. And why not celebrate stuff? As I say, any old excuse for a party and a gin. Cheers.
Don't need excuse for gin, clearly.
Yeah,
it's Wednesday.
8 o'clock on a Wednesday is my excuse. A gin. It's the only excuse I get. I know people tend to think I'm a bit of a lush, but I would like to point out this is the only gin I have all week.
Exactly. Why not?
Yeah. And why not? Exactly. So yeah, have you done rites of passage for things, either written them or been part of them in any capacity? What's your experience of them?
I've been part of them. I've never written one or actually sort of been asked to do one, although that would be lovely. Anything, but I have participated in.
Oh, Heather, you're stuck. This timing thing. Now, this time,
I am here.
What are you doing?
I'm not doing anything. I'm assuming you can see me and hear me now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to stop mucking about with the time during this hour, please. Now
I think it's the internet. I don't think it's me.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure. No, but Croning's the only thing I've had part of. So they're the major ones. I've been involved with Croning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a lovely ritual, actually. I love that. I've been a part of several Croning ceremonies, and I think it's such a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. But then, obviously, you've got naming ceremonies and things like that, and I rather like that. I've done a few naming ceremonies myself where, you know, I've had friends that have had children and families, and they've wanted those children to own their names, basically. You know, sort of officially be welcomed to the family and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's really, really nice. And of course, hand fastings. And yes, you have been asked to do a rite of passage because you've been asked to do a hand fasting in the summer. Have you not? Exactly. You can all again. Hello. So yeah, and that'll be lovely. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that'll be good. But it is an interesting thing, you know, and it's and it seems to be generally embraced. But as I say, you know, if it's not embraced by the person that's involved, then, you know, obviously the timing isn't right. Oh, look, she's popped off. Oh, well, I'm going. Oh, there you are now.
I don't know what's going on.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Stop about.
Me.
Keep your hands visible at all times. Oh dear. I don't know. Can't keep still, can we? So what have we got here? There. There's definitely messed up time. Brandy bottle coming out. Yeah, why not? Yeah, exactly. And as Hans says, it's lovely to revive some of these old traditions that are part of indigenous people's traditions. And it's celebrating birth and life and so on. Of course, again, rite of passage when you die, another one, you know, funerals, same sort of thing. And you know, it's all about marking those traditions. And of course, it's, you know, lots of different cultures, of course, have lots of different ways of doing that. And as eclectic pagans, we tend to sort of, there tends to be a propensity, doesn't there, to sort of pinch a bit of this and pinch a bit of that, and I quite like this and I quite like that. And as long as the people that kind of came up with it in the first place aren't offended by it being borrowed, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's being borrowed with the right intention, and I want to stress that, as long as it's being borrowed for the right intention, to be fair, I'm all for that. I really am. You know, as I say, as long as nobody's offended, and that's key. You know, and obviously you can do a variation on a theme. You get ideas from things, don't you? You think, oh, what a lovely idea. Let's, you know, incorporate something along those lines. Well, why the heck not? You know, it's
Well,
a
most
nice
things
thing.
are borrowed from somewhere, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's face it. You know, various religions around the world have been borrowed from other ones, haven't they? And you know, you've only got to look at any kind of product that's on the shelf in the supermarket. The idea was someone else's, and it's been borrowed and done to death by different companies. So yeah, it's all same old, whether it's baked beans or whatever. So yeah, but as I say, obviously there's, you know, it's a slightly more touchy subject. Obviously, I'm aware of that than baked beans. But yeah, but I think it is a beautiful thing. I think it's a lovely thing to be able to do things like that and mark it all. Yeah. Yeah. Chris has pointed out, we were given up a lot of rites of passage as they become church-only baptism and confirmation and so on and so forth. But yeah, and witches carried on, and the man and the woman in the street didn't. And I think that's a lot of it. And, you know, obviously several generations down the line, when it's not so force-fed, it's come back round full circle to it being a bit of a novelty again. I suppose that's the key of it, isn't it? Yeah. I want to point out, I'm going to put this on the screen. Hang on a minute here. There. So I like this. So rites of passage for the dying can be so helpful, not just for the one dying, but also for the family too. Really important and an honourable thing to be part of. Yeah, any rite of passage. But that's about helping the dying die, isn't it? And it's about beginning the grieving process for the family that are left behind, because, you know, for the most part, most people are frightened of death. Nobody actually really 100% knows what's the other side. And so, yeah, it's just a way of making it an easier transition for everybody involved. So, yeah, and I think that's lovely. Thank you, Hans. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, pointing out, teaching what we know so it's not all forgotten. Yeah. Are you all right? Are you all right, Heather?
Me? Yes.
Yes.
I don't know what's happening on my internet, but I'm all right.
Not quite sure what's happening over there at all. I think you've probably mucked it up with time too long, and you've got to make up with that time somewhere else.
Oh dear, I can't see what you're seeing, so I have no idea what's going on.
No, exactly. So sort of blips and pauses and blips and pauses and blips and pauses. On that point that Anne's made just now as well, Chris has pointed out that there are death rites, and hospices now recognise death doulas. And of course, there's death cafes and things like that as well, because, for people that have been left behind after somebody has died, there's a sort of certain limitation, isn't there, on I don't know, it's a kind of a silent given that it's like, well, you've done your grieving now, surely you've got over it. Everyone's different. But again, it's all part and parcel of it, and that is, again, it's a different way of dealing with it. But yeah, the whole death doula thing, again, and dealing with the situation around it, whether it's death or birth or marriage or whatever, it's all part and parcel of what's a natural progression in life, isn't it? And celebrating a person in that way and recognizing and honoring a person in that way, I think you can't get any more respectful than that, can you? And I think that's really, really important. So yeah. Now, apparently your voice is out of sync with the video as well, Heather. So everything's all a bit strange. There seems to be an awful lot going on, and I seem to have cut half my arm off. So actually, I'm going to end things rather early, simply because we seem to be having a bit of a problem here. So I'm going to say cheerio. Heather's disappeared again. There you are. Oh, she's back. There's a lot of smiling going on, which is rather nice. Hello. I'm just saying I'm going to end things a little bit early today because I appear to have chopped half my arm off and there's blood. So I'm going to disappear. Sorry. So yes, so I'm going to disappear. Heather will be back hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, as long as Belgium lets her. Yes, I'll be back here next week talking to somebody I haven't decided who yet. Naming no names, looking at nobody in particular. We'll see. So anyway, I will be talking to somebody else. And yeah. Yeah, I'm all right, Chris. It's just blood. It's just annoying, really. There's no pain, just blood. So, yes, that's all good. So I'm going to say toodle pip and go and find a mop. So I'll say cheerio. Toodaloo. Heather, do the awkward wave. Do the awkward wave. Do the awkward wave. Thank you very much. Toodle pip.